I'm going to speak to someone in Rochdale live after I've played a couple of videos of the past week. The first is from Platform Films, who, as you know, did the Jeremy Corbyn The Big Live movie. And this is an interview with George Galloway and also some interviews with local residents of Rochdale about what their views are on the election.
So has Palestine changed everything?
Yes, I think it has, not just in Britain. Joe Biden, for example, is in very serious trouble because of Gaza. 50% of his voters believe Israel is committing genocide, and 20% are not sure. And here in Britain, of course, it has, I'm afraid to say, fertilized ground which was waiting for something like this to happen, because the political class in Britain is increasingly defunct. It exists only because there are no alternatives, have been no viable alternatives. Farage and the Brexit Party proved when they broke through in the European Parliament elections that people only vote Labour or Tory because there actually isn't any other viable alternative. It's lesser of two evils. But there comes a point at which even the lesser of two evils, if they are the lesser of two evils, have become so evil that people can no longer stomach it, can no longer tolerate it. And if someone comes along, as we have here, who's clearly viable, as the bookmakers make clear, is potentially winnable, people are ready to get behind it, because nobody's enthusiastic about either Rishi Sunak or Keir Starmer. How could you be? Even their mothers would struggle, politically speaking, to love them.
So how is the Palestine question affecting the campaign here?
It's dominant in one part of the electorate, roughly 26,000 people strong. That's a lot of people in a by-election, because the general election turnout here was 60%, one of the lowest in the country. So the by-election turnout will be less than that. How much less, we don't know, but less than that. And so a voting block, if you like, of around 25,000 people is a very formidable one if they have a higher likelihood of voting, turning out. It's not a huge issue in other parts of the constituency, though you would be surprised maybe at how many non-Muslim people are horrified by what they're watching in Gaza, and may very well vote on the basis of how that's left them feeling.
So if you win here, will your victory have international implications?
Oh, I believe so. It will cheer good people all over the world. It will be a source of consternation, if not horror, terror, amongst the very worst people in the world. It will prove that what our leaders are doing is not with the authority or mandate of the people who elected them, and they'll either have to change or be changed. I think a bit of both will happen. Already it's happening. David Cameron is saying things now that James Cleverly would not have said 12 weeks ago. Keir Starmer is saying things today about Rafah, for example, that he would definitely not have said 6 weeks ago. So already we are seeing some political ground shifting. And in some other European countries, the Netherlands today passed a landmark court verdict which has forbidden the Dutch government from giving military supplies to Israel, on the basis that there's a high likelihood that crimes against humanity will be committed with those weapons. The French government is on the move. All over the world, those who backed Israel have discovered that they built a Frankenstein monster here, They didn't read Frankenstein right to the end. If they had, they would have known that when you build such a monster, you can no longer control it. And they're not able to control Netanyahu, even though they have the means, if they used it, to bring it to a halt. They have so built up a psychosis around these issues that it's very difficult for them to pull the plug now. And when they say, take care, kill the children a bit more softly, don't kill quite so many women, don't bomb people in tents in front of the cameras, Netanyahu tells them to go and take a running jump. He'll do exactly what he wants to do. And unless these Western leaders can find within themselves the courage to change, then the people will have to change them. And I think that will begin to happen if we win here. Independents will emerge all over the country who will challenge Labour, lose Labour seats, and maybe even capture some Labour seats. I've captured 2 of those before, in Bethnal Green and Bow and in Bradford West, and I hope to capture a 3rd here in Rochdale on the 29th.
Do you think Keir Starmer is afraid of the Palestine Factor?
If Keir Starmer isn't afraid of the Palestine Factor, he's a fool. And one assumes, I hope correctly, that to be a King's Counsel, you mustn't be a fool. He must know that he's gone far too far. I know that, well, I say I know, I think I know that he has no real feelings on this issue. It's entirely an opportunistic turn to get rid of Corbyn, to root out Corbyn's supporters from the Labour Party, to give to the state and the corporate interests that he serves a clear picture that Labour had changed. He doesn't really know much about these issues, that I'm sure of, and doesn't understand them well either. But he now knows he's gone too far, I think. And he didn't need to do it. He could be sitting, as I think Miliband would have been, with on the one hand, but on the other, fence-sitting approach. But Starmer decided, for inner party opportunistic purposes, to nail his colours firmly to the Israel mast. And that mast is sailing to disaster.
Do you think the £5 million from Gary Lubner might have a bearing on that?
Well, of course, money is one of the ways in which the pro-Israel forces across the Western world, particularly in the US, but also increasingly here, money is one of the ways that they tie people to their cause. In the case of the United States, so is compromat, blackmail. And that's what the Epstein operation was all about, gathering compromat on powerful people in politics and business in the United States and handing that over to the Israeli intelligence. One hopes that didn't happen here in Britain, but who knows? Maybe one day we'll know. So that's another way in which they do it. But a third is power. I had a good friend who was once a fixture on a national newspaper who told me that one's finger hovers over the keyboard before typing the word Israel in any story, because the inevitable consequence of it will be a wave of complaints and subversion. Editor will be told that people are not happy about what this journalist is doing, saying, writing. So they have many, many weapons, of which money is, of course, a significant one.
Has anti-Semitism now lost its power as a weapon to use against people who criticise Israel?
Well, it's a terrifyingly dangerous thing they've done by bankrupting the word anti-Semitism on the principle that if everybody's first class, nobody's first class. If everybody's an anti-Semite, the danger is that nobody will be seen as an anti-Semite, when anti-Semitism is a real thing and has long existed for millennia in the Christian world and led to the horrors of the Holocaust. And so, on the principle that the boy who cried wolf was ultimately eaten by a wolf because nobody any longer believed him, this is the great crime. It's a great crime against the Jews to have so bankrupted this word that people just brush it off their shoulder like dandruff, because it runs the risk of actual anti-Semites going under the radar, their evil work to do.
Are you going to win?
I think we're going to win big in Rochdale for all the reasons I've mentioned.
If you win in Rochdale, how do you believe that will affect the general election?
It will inspire independent candidates everywhere, including the places that are already known of: Jeremy Corbyn, Andrew Feinstein in St Pancras, candidates in Bethnal Green and in Newham, in Ilford. It will spread throughout the Northwest, a proliferation of independent candidates and Workers' Party candidates in the Northwest and in Birmingham in particular. At the council elections first in May, just 12 weeks after our by-election, and then at the general election whenever it comes. And Labour will pay a high price for that, because a lot of these independents will cause the defeat of Labour candidates. And some of those independent candidates may even be victorious themselves.
Amazing. Thank you. Very, very. George,
Is today George Galloway, he was here today for his campaign, which is a by-election going on 29th of February in Rochdale. So we asked our ladies to come and listen to him, and it was really interesting, and I think everybody enjoyed it. And whatever questions they were asking and was going on in their mind, he explained very nicely. So I think I myself thinking most of these ladies going to vote for him. Nobody is listening. So that's why anger is developing more and more, and people now say, no, enough is enough. We want to do something different now. Because now people are educated. You don't think people are dumb now. Social media make everyone so intelligent, and so they can go and on the click of a finger, they can find out what's happening around. So you can't make fool anymore. You have to prove with your work, yes, you can do it, and you are able to do it. Then people trust you. And if people see you are not listening, you are not doing anything, they will definitely move somewhere else.
Were you a Labour supporter?
Yes, I've been a Labour supporter all my life, since I've been in Rochdale for the last 50 years. So now, hard to understand. I was still interested in Labour Party. My children said, Mom, do you ever listen to the news about what they do and everything? So, not very happy.
Generally, probably, I'm just saying from my point of view, but other people may be thinking that, campaigners or candidates, they come around when the election time is, you see their faces, and afterwards you don't see them again. Yeah. So it's like they're losing confidence in the campaigners, candidates. We've supported Labour for 30 odd years, and now we've lost the confidence. And the way they have, talking about Gaza, or the Stemmer, the leader there, he's a Zionist supporter, and we don't want to support Labour anymore. And I think there are a lot of other people in the similar boat, thinking the same way.
Right now, that's just the flavour of what's been happening in the past week in Rochdale. But actually, I wanted to show something that I saw last night. There's just Lowkey was up in Rochdale at an event with George Galloway, and I found this speech very powerful that he made there, and I wanted to share it with you. And then we're going to speak to Sean from the Workers' Party about what's happening. I'm just going to play this clip from Lowkey.
I'm somebody that travelled to Gaza with George Galloway when he took the step to break the siege of Gaza. We're talking about an Israeli-imposed, an Egyptian-enforced, and a US-supported siege on 2 million people. We're talking about a child mortality rate of 23%. We're talking about 95% of the water unfit for human consumption. We're talking about the most powerful governments in the world enforcing a siege that made sure those people died. Slow, incremental deaths. And George took that move to break that siege because he was ready to die. You don't take moves like that. You don't take moves like that. You don't mobilize people in the way that he did if this was not an eventuality that you were at ease with. They tried everything to stop him. They mobilized all manner of dirty tricks. Now we are in front of an opportunity to enact the revenge of history. And when I say enact the revenge of history, I'm not just talking about the over 30,000 people in Gaza that have been killed by Israel and its partners, the United States and Britain. I'm talking about the 1 million people that were killed in Iraq by Tony Blair's Labour Party. That is who you will be. That's what I mean by the revenge of history. Keir Starmer's Labour Party needs to understand very clearly that it is a toxic brand within our communities. When the war on terror was launched in 2001, you are talking about 20 years of on average 46 bombs being dropped per day by the United States and its allies. At that time, the Labour Party had over 50,000 shares within BAE Systems, the largest arms company in this country. That is an example of insider trading, if ever there was one. Now, when somebody goes to the seat of US power, to the corridors of the United States government, looks them in the eye and says to them, I am not the criminal, you are the war criminals. You know when a person does that, that person is ready to die for what they believe in.
Right. Now we're joined by Sean from the Workers' Party. Are you there, Sean?
Hi, Crispin. How are you doing?
I'm good. Yeah, I know. I realise it's a bit early for you because you probably had a late one last night with Lowkey and lots of other things going on. It looks very exciting what's happening up there. Can you give us an update on what's going on? Because sorry, just to finish. Last week was chaotic. This Labour candidate was warned about what he'd said. Then they apologised. Then they suspended him. Then he said, I think that he's going to stand anyway as an independent. It just goes on. It's just you can't even keep up with what's going on. Is there anything you can tell us about what's happening right now in Rochdale in the campaign, not just in George's bit, but anywhere else?
Michael Crick put out an image, an infographic earlier this week. I think that's what you're referring to say that Afsar Ali was going to be standing as an independent.
Yeah.
However, we haven't had that confirmed. We've had no sight or sound of him at all. So I don't know where Michael Crick got that information from. The last we were told, he'd already left the country. Afsar Ali had already gone. He'd fled. So that's one I'll keep my eye on, and we'll get back to you if anyone sees him around. But as of this moment, nobody's seen sight or sound of him, and certainly nobody's canvassing for him.
All right. Well, I'm pleased you could clear that up, because maybe it was a spoof flyer or something that someone made up, and Michael Crick, being so keen for drama, not like me, he decided to put it out there, and everyone's thinking, "Oh, this Astar Ali's lost his head again." But
it could
but
be.
you're not sure it's actually true. He might not be doing anything, or it doesn't seem
Yeah,
like
well,
he's doing anything.
we've been looking out for him, and there's been no sight or sound of him in Rochdale, nor nobody canvassing for him. So so as far as we're concerned, what we were told was the day after he'd been demanded to come down to London for that meeting, with regards to the anti-Semitic comments that he'd made. He'd fled the country. That's what we were told, and we haven't seen sight of him since. So
Did he go to Israel?
well, that's what we were thinking. Is that where he went?
Well, maybe that's yeah. Well, I mean, and the other thing is, I mean, I'm interested to hear. I mean, with him off the, not off the paper, but effectively not a challenger, not someone you have to worry about so much. And also the Green Party candidate isn't campaigning because he said stuff that he's regretted.
Yeah.
Is that the party that you think is the biggest challenge to George at the moment?
No, I don't think he is a big challenge at all. The majority, there's 10 constituents, there's 10 wards within the constituency of Rochdale, and 8 of them are predominantly Muslim. And there's 2 of them that are very rural areas that are predominantly white. And I think those are the only 2 areas really that Simon is targeting. And there's another candidate, I'm not going to tell you who they are because they're just not even worth thinking about. But I think those are the only areas that they're targeting. Simon was around on his blue bus. Yeah, Simon Danchuk was around on his blue bus yesterday. So that's normally George's thing. He normally rents a bus and goes around. So Simon's pinched that idea, and he was out on a blue bus yesterday, travelling around. But again, nobody saw him in the areas where we were. So I can only take from that he was in the other 2 constituencies, maybe the more rural areas. But the point is, Crispin, we've had such a fantastic response from the local community. They've welcomed us with open arms. We have people dropping by just to have a cup of tea and a chat with us in the office every day, and they've been absolutely amazing. People out on the doorstep yesterday were out talking to people and door knocking, had a great response. The majority of people they speak to are going to be voting for George. The rest of them are either undecided or they've just got complete apathy. They're not going to vote at all. So I think we're going to be in for a big win in Rochdale. However, we can't be complacent. We've got to keep going. We've got to keep the campaign strong. We need people to come down and help with the door knocking. We've got more leaflets to deliver. And also on the 29th to help get the vote out on the day.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like it looks close. It looks like a win, but I mean, it would be horrible if he doesn't win at the end. So if we can get as many people to do that, to support his campaign, that would be fantastic. And thank you so much for.
Before I go, Crispin, can I just tell people where they can come?
Yeah.
So if they come down, they can. It's the Rochdale Suzuki car dealership, and it's on Crawford Street in Rochdale, and the postcode is OL16 5 R for Romeo, S for Sierra. And I hope to see many, many people there, as we have done this last week. Thanks very much for having me on, Crispin.
Thank you, and well done with what you're doing. And
Cheers.
cheers. Thank you very much for coming on.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Bye.
Bye.